About 6 o'clock this morning, we heard 3 explosions.
A quiet California neighborhood got a rude awakening this morning as law enforcement officials descended on the home of a 68-year-old man.
It was always very nice to us, and he'd hang out in his backyard and listen to classic rock and smoke pot.
He also seemed to nurse a grudge against the media. Police arrested him for allegedly making threats against a newspaper. The CBC's Ellen Morrow looks at who may have inspired him.
These are just dishonest, terrible people. I'm telling you that. Terrible people.
It almost isn't news that President Trump launched yet another attack tonight in his relentless battle against the media, except for what else happened today. A California man was arrested for making violent threats against the Boston Globe. In one of 12 calls to the paper, Robert Chain allegedly said, "You're the enemy of the people. We're going to kill every effing one of you." Who else has been calling the media the enemy? President Trump.
I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are.
You know, CNN, fake news, MSNBC, that's really the enemy of the people.
And it's totally common for presidents to criticize the press. All of them have done so. To label the press a domestic enemy is a sharp departure from any historical precedent.
The threatening calls began after the Globe and more than 300 papers across the U.S. published editorials criticizing Trump's attacks on the media.
The citizenry has to be informed about what's going on so that they can govern themselves. It's a pillar of democracy and self-governance. And the idea that the president, my president, their president, would declare the press to be an enemy of the people, we found deeply alarming.
The president's attacks are nothing new.
Because they are the fake, disgusting news.
But the fear now is that they could fuel violence. In another call, Chain allegedly said, "As long as you keep attacking the president, I will continue to threat, harass, and annoy the Boston Globe."
So there's the concern is President Trump, by the use of his language and attacks, giving sort of an open door to some people to say, you know what, I'm going to go do this.
It's the Washington Post, the New York Times.
That doesn't seem to worry President Trump. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
And just days ago, New York Times reporter Kenneth Vogel shared a threat he received on voicemail. Imagine getting this message.
You're the problem. You are the enemy of the people. And although the pen might be mightier than the sword, the pen is not mightier than the AK-47. And just remember, Ken, there's nothing civil about a civil war.
It's pretty scary stuff. But when it comes to demonizing the media, it's not just happening in the U.S. These are German protesters shouting a notorious slogan that translates as the lying press. It was once a favorite of Adolf Hitler, who understood that propaganda works better when people don't trust the media. For days now, thousands of people have gathered on the streets in one German city to take a loud and public stand against refugees. And as the CBC's Margaret Evans shows us, it's a situation that could explode.
The angry face of the far right in the German city of Chemnitz. Demonstrators hurling out a defiant call to all those who would criticize them. Get lost. Today, leaders at both state and local levels were at pains to reassure a gathering of community groups that law and order has not fled the city. It is very important to say that the state has the monopoly on the use of force, the Premier of Saxony said. We enforce law and order. Witnesses say it didn't feel that way earlier this week, when German authorities failed to prevent thousands of far-right activists from rampaging through the city in the wake of a stabbing that left a German man dead last weekend. The rioting grew after an apparent leak to far-right anti-immigrant groups that an Iraqi man was named in an arrest warrant in connection with the killing. Some of the protests used Hitler salutes, according to the police, illegal in Germany. And there were reports of mobs combing the city in search of foreigners. This Syrian man says he's afraid. I hope the German government brings in strict laws so it doesn't happen again, he's saying. Chemnitz is the third largest city in Saxony. As in other parts of former East Germany, hard-right parties, including the Alternative for Germany, have been on the rise, feeding on fear and anger in some quarters over Angela Merkel's decision to allow 1 million mainly Syrian refugees into the country back in 2015. Merkel has condemned both the killing of the German man and the violence and backlash against foreigners that has followed, saying mobs and hate on the streets have no place in a state under the rule of law. But far-right groups say they are planning more demonstrations for Saturday. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.